is time to take what we learned in 3.1 and 3.2 and put it all together. So now we are getting to truth tables. Okay, so I have provided you some notes before this video titled Truth Tables. And so we're going to talk about what truth tables, what these ideas do, like the ands, the ors, the if-thens, the biconditionals, negations, what those do to pieces of information. In 3.3, we're going to focus in on nothing but negation, ands, and ors. In 3.4, that's when you'll talk about if-thens and biconditionals. Okay? So 3.3.3.4 is all about truth tables and being able to run them. So for negations, you can see, you can look some of this information up on page 139. But for negation, what it means is that you're going to do the opposite truth value from a statement. So if I have some sort of statement P, and that statement is either true or false. So what you're looking at is all the options for statement P. It's either true or it's false. If I negate that statement, that means a true statement becomes false. A false statement becomes true. Okay? So if you ever have to negate something, what is happening is you are just changing the truth value to its opposite. What was once true becomes false. What was once false becomes true. That's what negations do on truth tables. Ands. When we deal with ands, let me just explain what you're looking at here. Ands are generally what we call compound. I mean, they're compounds, but ands generally deal with two statements. Okay. In our case, we've got this statement P and this statement Q. This is what I call the general setup. Okay. And what you're looking at here are all the possible situations between P and Q. So you can have one situation where P is true and Q is true. You could have one situation where P is true, but Q is false. You could have one situation where P is false, Q is true. You can have one situation where P is false and Q is false. Okay, this is what I call the default settings. P column always goes true, true, false, false. Q column always goes true, false, true, false. Or again, these could be different letters. This could be R and S or Q and R. Okay, but it always goes for the default setting for two statements, two letters, true, true, false, false, true, false, true, false. Most of the time, your My Math Lab will give you that information like this. See, it's already started for you. True, true, false, false, true, false, true, false. But there are occasions, once we get out of this stuff, the 3.3 and 3.4, where you'll have to make your own truth table. More about that to come. But right now, most of the problems, they're going to be set up for you with true, true, false, false, true, false, true, false. Okay? All right. So let's jump back to this. So ands. Ands are only true if both P and Q are true. Okay, so that's important to know. And is only true if both P and Q are true. So if you look here, P and Q are true, so that means the and of their statement is true. P is true, Q is false, so that's false, because these are not both true. If P is false, Q is true, that's still false, because they both have to be true in order to be true. And then P is false, Q is false, that's still a false answer. Because again, the only time when an and is true is if both are true. Okay? Ors are the opposites. Okay? There's that default setting you see. True, true, false, false. True, false, true, false. Okay? Ors are only false when both are false. Okay, and again, on page 144, you can check out ors. On page 140, you can check out ands. The same information is there. So true, true is true. True, false is still true, because it's only false when both are false. False, true is true. Here's the false case. Because we're false here and false there, we are false over here, because both P and Q are false. Okay? So to recover what we talked about, because this is what 3-3 is about, negations, all they do is change the truth value to its opposite. True becomes false, false becomes true. Conjunctions are only true if both are true. Everybody else has to be false. And disjunctions are only false when both are false. Other than that, everybody else is true. All right, so let's jump in and let's take a look at what you guys are going to see. A majority of your problems are going to be like this. Okay, they're going to give you the truth table and they're going to say, okay, find me the answer. Now, again, a lot of this is already going to be set up for you in the problem. Okay, they're going to have the whole table set up. All you got to do is fill in whether it's true or whether it's false. I want to teach you how to do these tables without having everything, set up for you. Like, and what I mean set up for you, I'll show you an example. It's like this one right here. See how this full table is already here. All you have to do is fill in what's going on. I'm going to teach you how to get this, where this information is coming from. Okay? So, we have what Mr. Armstrong calls his order of operations for truth tables. Armstrong's order of operations, truth table style. So we had Venn diagrams. Here's Mr. Armstrong's truth table style. Okay? All right. So when you're dealing with truth tables, this is how you deal with it. Okay? So the first thing you're going to want to do, number 1, parentheses. Take care of parentheses first. 2, after that, take care of negations. 3, take care of ands and ors. Let's see here if it will give me the symbols that I need. There they are. Ands and ors. Again, always working left to right. Number 4. See if they have the rest of these somewhere. Don't see them there. Not seeing it there. So we'll have to make it. So here you'll be dealing with conditionals. And then last but not least, number 5, take care of the biconditionals. Notice it's pretty much in the order of dominance. It went from the weakest symbol to the strongest. Okay? So that is the order of operations. Right now, you're not going to have to worry about steps 4 and 5 because that's for 3-4. All right? But order of operations right there. Let's group these together. There we go. So keep that in mind. Hopefully you wrote it down. So when we come up here, we've got our default here. So the first thing we're going to look for is, do we have parentheses? All right, let me go to full page so you can see this. So do we have parentheses? Nope. So we skip that. So we move to the next one. Do we have a negation? Absolutely. Didn't mean to write that little piece right there. We have a negation right here. So this is the first thing we're going to deal with. I'm going to make a new column, and this is going to be called negate Q. So I'm going to use this column right here to help me get that answer right there. And remember, negations, all it does is flips the sign. So true becomes false. False becomes true. True becomes false. False becomes true. So there's step 2. Step 3, do we have any ands or ors? And absolutely, we got this guy right here. So this is step 3. We're going to take care of this part. Okay? That is an and. So we're going to have a new column that says P and negate Q. So I'm going to use the P column and the negation column to help me answer this last one. Now, if you notice, whenever we do truth tables, you will see that every column is used. If you put a column up here that is not used, then why did you put the column up there? Okay, every column should be used. So this is why we had to do the negation first, because we're going to use it with the P column and the negate Q column. Now remember, ands. Ands are only true when both are true. Okay? So when we look at this column, we're going from true to false. Well, that means that this is a false answer. Here, we're going from true to true. That's a true answer, because the ands are only true when both are true. Here, you're going from false to false. That's false. And then from false to true. And that's false. So there's the final answer. These are the possible truth values for this statement. False, true, false, false. And these over here are the conditions. Okay? So if I wanted a true answer in the end, my P statement, whatever it is, had to be true. My Q statement had to be false. Okay? So there are questions like that. Your book is going to say, hey, what are the conditions? And these are your conditions over here, where I get a true answer in the end. So the conditions would be P is true, Q is false. This yields a true answer in the end. Okay, so there are some questions like that. What are the conditions? So you look over for a true answer. So here's our true answer. Here are the conditions. P is true, Q is false. Okay? It's about as crazy as what this gets. You got this. Go ahead, try this one on your own, and go. Okay. So, hopefully the first thing you did was the negation, because we don't have any parentheses. So we're going to negate the P first. So I'm going to take this column right here, and I'm going to use it to help me find the negation of P. So again, negation, all that does is flips the truth value. True becomes false. True becomes false. False becomes true. False becomes true. Okay? Next, we're going to take care of this symbol, which that is an or. And so for this or, negate P or Q. So I'm making a new column. I'm going to use the negation of P to help me, and I'm going to use Q to help me. Notice I've used every column that I have written up here. Again, as I said a moment ago, if you do not use every column, why do you have one of those columns to begin with? Okay, every column should be used. So, remember, ors only false when both are false. Okay, so I've got true, false. That's true. I've got false, false. That's the false case because both of these are false. I've got true, true, and that's true. I've got false, true, and that is also true. So let me ask you this question. What is the conditions for a false answer? What are the conditions for a false answer? Go ahead and answer that. All right, so hopefully you see right here, this is a false answer. It's the only one. So what are the conditions? They're right there. So that means P is true, Q is false. Those are the conditions for a false answer. Easy peasy, that's it. See, nothing crazy. Promise you. Go ahead, try it again. And go. Okay. So, in this one, in the beginning, hopefully you notice, oh, I've got to negate P. So that's going to be our first column. So negate P. So true becomes false. True becomes false. False becomes true. False becomes true because I used the P column to help me get to this one. Then notice you had another negation. So you can negate Q. Now I know I usually get a question like, Mr. Armstrong, does it matter if I do the P first and then the Q? It doesn't really matter on the negations as long as you perform them both. Okay, so I could have negate Q here and then negate P here. It's all the same. So we're going to use the Q column to get negate Q. So true becomes false. False becomes true. True becomes false. False becomes true. And last but not least, we'll take care of the OR. So negate P or negate Q. That's going to be the last column. So remember, ORs are only false when both are false. So we're going to be using these two columns right here to help us out. So I've got false, false. That's the false case for the OR. They're only false when both are false. I've got false, true. That's true. I've got true, false. That's true. I've got true, true. That's true. So there are all the final results. So what are the conditions? Ask this extending question. What are the conditions for a false answer? Go. So right here you see a false answer. What are the conditions? P is true. Q is true. And there you go. Hopefully it might be getting a little bit easier. I know this is definitely new for a lot of you. Okay? Try it again. All right. So let's talk about this. First things first, do I have parentheses? Absolutely. And again, with PEMDAS, you work inside the parentheses only. Do not worry about this negation. It is outside the parenthesis. Okay? So we're going to work inside the parenthesis. Do I have a negation in here? Absolutely not. Again, that negation is outside the parenthesis. Can't touch it yet. So in here, do I have and an or? Absolutely. I've got an or. Okay? So we're going to take care of the or first. So we're going to have P or Q. So we'll use the P column and the Q column to help us answer. Again, P's are only false when both are false. So I've got true, true. That's true. I've got true, false. That's true. I've got false, true. That's true. False, false is false. Okay? Now we've finished inside the parentheses. Now we work outside. So again, I just start my PEMDAS over. Do I have negation outside? Absolutely. So this is where we're going to take care of this guy. So all we're going to do is negate the or statement. We're going to take this column and negate it. That's what they want you to do. So true becomes false. True becomes false. True becomes false. False becomes true. My final question to you, what are the conditions for a false answer? What are the conditions for a false answer? So you can see that we actually have 3 conditions for this. Okay, one of your conditions, P is true, Q is true. Another set of conditions is P is true. Q is false. And a third condition is P is false. Q is true. So remember, as I said, most of this is multiple choice. So you have 3 answers right here. Down in the multiple choice, one of these answers is going to be there. Okay. This isn't going to be like a select all. Okay. One of these answers will be down there in the multiple choice. Just make sure that you read through and figure out which one of these answers will be displayed in the multiple choice, because you actually had 3 conditions that produced false answers. P and Q are true is a false answer. P is true, Q is false is a false answer. P is false, Q is true is a false answer. Okay? Try it again, a little bit longer. But again, it's not crazy, I promise you. Just do the same things again. Try it. And go. Okay. So the first thing we're going to take care of is parentheses. So we have parentheses right here. And inside the parentheses, do we have negations? Absolutely. I've got a negate Q here. Negate Q. All right, so we're going to negate the Q first. So true becomes false. I'm going to use this information to help me. False becomes true. True becomes false. False becomes true. Again, you don't have to put the little bars up here showing you what columns used where. I'm doing that so you know which column I'm grabbing for what. Okay? Kind of like a trail of where everything came from. Now, I'm not done inside my parenthesis. Do I have any ands or ors? Absolutely. We have an or. So we need to finish that parenthesis up by doing the or. Okay? So I'm going to take P and the negate Q column to help me out there. See how I'm using every column. If you make a column and do not use it, why did you make that column then? Okay? So remember, ors only false when both are false. So I've got true, false. That's true. I've got true, true. That's true. I've got false, false. There's my false answer. And I've got false, true. That is true. Okay? Now, we finished the parenthesis. Now we start working outside. Okay? So do I have any negations outside? You bet. I've got this negate P. So we're going to take and negate P now. Okay? So I'm going to take the P column and negate it. Okay? So this becomes false, false, true, true. Okay? And last but not least, out here, we got to take care of the and. And so we are taking an and of the negate P column and the parenthesis column. That's who we're taking the ands of. Okay? So we're going to use this column and that column. So remember, ands are only true when both are true. So I got true, false. That's false. I got true, false. That's false. I got false, true. That's false. I've got true, true. That is true. There's the final column. Okay? And again, they could ask that extending question like, what are the conditions for false answers? Well, you could look for P true, Q true. Or you could look for P true, Q false. Or you could look for P false, Q true. Or they could ask the question, what are the conditions for a true answer? And there's only one of those. That's when P is false and Q is false. Okay? This is as crazy as what it gets, I promise you. This is like truth tables. Okay? So let's take a look at a couple of problems. So you've seen this stuff. You know how to do these by scratch. But again, like I said, most of the time they're going to... Sorry about that. I skipped over a page. Okay. Yeah, I'll get to that guy. Most of the time, what they're going to do is they're going to have the table set up for you anyway. But please also beware of the tables. Sometimes they skip some important columns. Like sometimes they like to skip over the negation columns. So be careful of that. This is why I would always do my true table out to the side, because this is a lot of information to try and keep track in your head. This is why I show every column. But again, our book, sometimes they may not show this negate P column and they'll just go straight to this part right there. So this is why I like to do stuff out to the side. Okay. So here, yeah. So here's what some of the problems in your book are going to look like. Okay. So you might have a problem well, like these, where they give you the information and you're filling in the truth table. Okay. So just like what you would do here on part B. So they give you the symbols and they say, fill in the truth table. Or it might be like this, where they're like, here's a statement up here, and they want you to turn it into symbols. Then they want you to do a truth table. And then, oh, look, use the truth table to indicate one set of conditions that make the compound statement true. Okay, and there's what I was talking about right there, the multiple choice type information. Other ones they might ask you is after you run the information, they want to know if it's a tautology, neither, or a self-contradiction. We'll talk about those here in a second. And then the last one they'll do is they'll want to know, is this a true statement or a false statement? And they're giving you some information up here. So you're not doing a true full out truth table to this. You're going to do a short condensed down version. Okay. We'll talk about that one here in just a second. But those are the kinds of problems they're going to give you. Nothing that you can't handle. If you can do all of these, you can handle what's being thrown at you. All right. So let's talk about this one. This is like the longest question here. So up here, they give you a statement right here. They want you to turn this into symbols. Well, we've done lots of that in 3-2. So again, remember, I underline statements. Oh, look, there's a not there. I circle the conjunctions and all that. And then I underline the second statement. So this first statement should look like squiggle P. Because again, they don't tell us who P is or anything like that. Ands looks like that. And then over here, you left the room a mess. That we'll call Q. So we need an answer down here that looks like this for the symbols. And if you come down here and look, this one does not look like it, so you can throw A out. We know it's not A. That one does not look like it, so we know it's not B. So if you look at these last two, these look like my information up here, but you got to look careful at these. So over here, it's telling you what the statements P and Q represented. So does P represent you did do the dishes? And Q is you left the room a mess? Or is the real P you did not do the dishes and you let Q be you left the room a mess? All right, so if you come up here, remember, this statement is the negation of P. So you did not do the dishes. That's the negation of P. So right here, it's trying to tell you that P is that same statement. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Okay? P cannot be you did not do the dishes. And up here, this is you did not do the dishes, but we have squiggle P. See, that doesn't make any sense. I can't call this P and squiggle P at the same time. So D is actually the answer that you need to throw out, because this is a negated statement. That is a negated statement right there. You did not do the dishes. So the real answer for us is actually C. You did the dishes is the real P value. Okay? So make sure that you read these carefully, because they're going to do some interesting things down here. This is the negated statement right here, not the real P statement. Okay? So watch out for that. And then now all we do is we fill in the truth table. We've done that. Go ahead, pause the video, and do that. And go ahead and answer the next two questions, B and C. So this is exactly what you've kind of been experiencing with me on the first couple questions. I just wanted to talk about part A. And go. Okay, so hopefully you took the P column and we negated it. So that makes this false, false, true, true. And what you see right here in these blanks, sometimes these are drop-down menus, sometimes these will be multiple choice, okay? Or sometimes you might have to fill in the letter, so you just put F or T. All right, so sometimes they're drop-downs, multiple choice, or fill in the blank. Over here, now we're gonna do the AND. So the AND is gonna take the Q column and the negate P column. And remember, ANDs are only true when both are true. So we have true, false, that's false. We have false, false, that's false. We have true, true, that's true. We have false, true, that's false. So there's the final answers right there. Okay, and now we can answer C. It says use the truth table to indicate one set of conditions that make the compound statement true. All right, so if we look up here, here's the true answer. What were the conditions? Well, P is false, Q is true. All we got to do is find that over here. So the statement is true for all conditions. That's not true because I have false conditions up here, so we know that it's not that. The statement is true when P is false, Q is true. P is false, Q is true. Up, here it is. It's B. And if you look at the other ones, there are no conditions for the statement is true. Well, that's not true. It's right here. Here, I have a true statement. So we have conditions. And then down here it says the statement is true when P is true, Q is false. Well, when P is true, Q is false, that's a false statement. So it has to be B. See? Easy peasy. You got this. All right, so let's talk about this one. What does it mean to be a tautology, self-contradiction, and neither? Well, that's at the very end of these notes. I give you these three definitions. We'll talk about implication when we get into 3-4. Okay, but tautology just means when all the final truth values are true. So if you run a truth table and in the end you have nothing but true, 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 everything's true, that's a tautology. Okay. Self-contradiction is when all the final truth values are false. Okay. So when everything in the very last column is F, 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 false, 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 that's a self-contradiction. If you're not one of these two, you're neither. If you're a mixture, you're a neither. Okay? So if we go back and kind of look at some of the stuff that we've had from the very beginning, this is a neither case. It's almost a self-contradiction. If this guy just would have been false, we would have had a self-contradiction because it would have been false, 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 false. Okay? This guy is a neither because I have a mixture. But it would have almost been a tautology if this one had been true because then it would have been true, 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 true. Okay? So that's kind of the idea. So what is this one? Hopefully you said this was a neither, but it was close to a tautology if this would have just been true. What about this one? Hopefully you said this one was neither as well, but again, it was almost a self-contradiction if this bottom one would have been false. All right. So in this case, we need to figure out what it is. Uh-oh. Notice they did not give us the truth table. So this is what I was talking about a couple minutes ago where you have to make your own. Okay? Oh, we'll get back to this guy here in just a second. So you only have two statements up here. You have P and Q. So you know what that truth table looks like. P is true, true, false, false. Q is true, false, true, false. Okay, that's the default setting. So now just start going through this. So do I have parentheses? Absolutely. And I'm going to work left to right. So I'm going to take care of this first parenthesis right here. So in this first parenthesis, do I have negations? Yeah, I've got to negate P. So let's go ahead and take care of that. Negate P. So we use this column to help us out. So true becomes false, true becomes false, false becomes true, false becomes true. Okay? I also have a negate Q. in that. So we're going to negate the Q as well. So we'll take the Q column to help us negate that one. So this becomes false, true, false, true. Now to finish up that parenthesis, all that we have left is an and, an or. So we're going to negate P or negate Q. And that will finish up that first parenthesis. So in order to do that, we'll use the two negation columns. Ors are only false when both are false. So false, false becomes false. False, true becomes true. True, false is true. True, true is true. There's the first parenthesis done. Now let's hop over to the next parenthesis. Do I have any negations in here? Nope. But I do have an and. So we're going to take and do an and. Oops. Actually wrote an A for and. We're going to do the and parenthesis now. And that will finish that one up. So we'll use P. And that line doesn't go there. P and the Q column to help us out. Again, ands are only true when both are true. So I got true, true. So that's true. I've got true, false. That's false. I've got false, true. That's false. I've got false, false. That's false. And now we've taken care of our parentheses. We're on the outside. So do I have any negations outside? No. But I do have another and. Okay? So we're going to take care of our and using the two parentheses. Notice I made these columns for a reason, because I need these two parenthesis columns to answer the last question. So these two columns will help me answer that. See, every column was used. So again, ands are only true when both are true. False, true, false, true, false, false, true, false, false, true, false, false. So here's the final values. So what is this? Is this a tautology, neither, or a self-contradiction? And hopefully you said this is a self-contradiction because everybody's false. And that's it. Okay, last kind of question. So this time they gave us 3 statements. Let me show you the default for a 3 statement. Okay. For a 3 statement, the default looks like this. It's a little bit bigger. A 3 statement is true, 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 false, 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 true, true, false, false, true, true, false, false, true, false, true, false, true, false, true, false. That's the default for a 3-statement Venn diagram. Okay? Notice it kind of has a pattern to it. Like if I cut it off right here, and if I didn't have the P column, take a look at this. That looks just like the default statement for 2 statements. True, true, false, false, true, false, true, false. And it just repeats down here. All we do with 3 statements is we add that first column and make it true, 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 false, 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 false. Okay? So there's definitely a pattern to it. Okay? So that's the default. But what's cool about this, I wanted to show you that because you might run into like 1 or 2 of those where you have to do a full truth table. But in this one, what's cool is you're not really doing a full truth table. Right up here, they are telling you that they only want to know what happens when P is true, Q is false, R is false. They only care about that information. So down here, we're not actually using this entire table. We don't care about all of it. We just care about this information. So all we want to know is what happens when P is true, Q is false, R is false. So we're going to run this on that. So we start up here. Do we have parentheses? Absolutely. Do I have any negations in here? Nope. So we're going to take care of the OR. So my first column is the parenthesis of Q or R. So we use these two columns to help us out. So OR is only false when both are false. So I got false, false. So that's false. Okay, now we work on the outside. So do I have any negations out here? Nope. Do I have any ands or ors? Absolutely. I got an and right here. So we're going to have P and the parenthesis of Q or R. So we're going to use the P column and the parenthesis column. Ands are only true when both are true. So I have true, false. So that is false. So now you have finished it. So what is the truth value of this statement? It is false. It is a false answer. It is right there. And that's it. That's what they wanted you to do. You didn't have to do everything. Okay? And that is 3.3. Next, in 3.4, we'll talk about conditionals and biconditionals. See you then.